What's up, YouTube? My name is Keith, and this is the first episode of Horror Headcanons. I've been a lifelong horror fan ever since I saw Creepshow at the age of 4, and then as I was growing up, just kind of devoured everything I could, old VHS copies of every grisly-looking thing, and some were good, some were not, but it kind of never left me. And so I wanted to start a YouTube channel because as much as I like watching horror movies, I also like yapping about them. And so I thought, what better creative outlet than to get on YouTube and blab about what I've seen, what I liked, what I didn't like. And so I was kind of wondering, how do you start off? How do you have a good first video? And I thought, well, let's just talk about the most recent stuff I've been checking out. So last night I was picking around on Amazon and watched Final Destination Bloodlines, and I liked it quite a bit. It kind of takes a little while to get going, which is kind of funny when you think about those movies and how they always start with this great big huge elaborate set piece. Well, this huge elaborate set piece happens, and you meet some characters, and then you flash forward, and then you got to meet a whole bunch of other characters. So it just takes a little bit of time to kind of get going. Not bad, not boring, just kind of like, you're watching Final Destination, you want to get to the splattery parts. But once it gets going, it gets going. So we got lawnmowers to the head, we got, and jumped in a trash compactor, MRI machine, and man, MRI machines are scary. Those are a powerful magnet. And then, the last appearance of Tony Todd, and I kind of got a little choked up at that. I felt it was a really great send off, and I felt the filmmakers were really respectful. And if you don't love Tony Todd, I'm sorry, I just don't have time for you. But I would recommend checking it out. A lot of fun. I kind of love the Final Destination group of people being haunted by the ghost of Rube Goldberg. Just what kind of mousetrap can we set up? What kind of convoluted way can we have somebody end up squished across the screen? So yeah, pretty good. Check it out. And the other thing I got going on is I've been picking up these Vinegar Syndrome releases of later works of Dario Argento. Dario Argento is probably my favorite director, or one of my favorite directors. That from that time from 1970 to 1990, I think is any of those movies. I'll sit down and watch them, and I think some of the greatest movies of all time. And just, I think he was a peak filmmaker in that era. But everybody who is an Argento fan knows that there was a drop off. But there's still a lot to be, a lot of good stuff to be picked through there. So Vinegar Syndrome's been putting out these 4K editions, Stendhal Syndrome, Sleepless, and then most recently Phantom of the Opera. So I picked them up. They also put out the Card Player. The Card Player is not a good movie. So I'm satisfied with my Scorpion releasing Blu-ray of it. But yeah, these are really good additions. Kind of everything that Vinegar Syndrome does, they put a lot of care into. And with 4K stuff, the price is getting a little bit up there. But for what you can get here, I think it's worth it. First one I want to yap about here is Sleepless. So Sleepless came out in 2001. Was going to be Dario Argento's kind of big comeback, and I think it's got a lot going for it. The score by Claudio Simonetti is great. Ronnie Taylor did the photography, and it looks really good. He's the same one who did the photography on Opera, which is, one of the best photographed movies of the 1980s, if you ask me. And has a really great performance by Max von Sydow. One of the problems is if you watch it with the English language track, Max von Sydow's voice is there and it's great, but everybody else, the English dubbing is terrible. So I would recommend, and both language tracks are on this release. Watch it with the Italian. You're going to get a lot more life out of all the other performers, and then you still kind of get Max von Sydow. He'd be great if he didn't say a word. So some of the problems with this movie it is kind of meandering. It just doesn't reach the heights of, every Argento movie kind of had just an element that took you by surprise. And this one seems to be kind of a paint by the numbers. I think by this point there had been so many psychopathic serial killer movies. We kind of know what to expect, and it's really hard to surprise us. There are some really good things in it. The opening sequence in the train is top notch. Almost gets back to peak Argento, but then the story just kind of mushrooms out. You got a killer dwarf. You got a harpist. Um, there's just a lot of different stuff that just kind of meanders. But like I said, the Claudio Simonetti score is great, and then this release from Vinegar Syndrome looks fantastic. Um, if you have that old Scorpion releasing Blu-ray, this is definitely worth the upgrade because that Blu-ray had some picture quality issues. There's a moment where the frame stutters, and as I was watching it, I was like, "Was this damage negative or something like that?" But it wasn't. It was it was a problem with the transfer that they just never bothered to fix. But this looks really great. So I highly recommend if you're into Argento. I think Sleepless is one that you're going to find a lot. If you're on that wavelength, you're going to really enjoy Sleepless. And then when I said he was making a comeback, well, what he was making a comeback from was Phantom of the Opera. This is not in any way could you classify Phantom of the Opera as a good movie, but I think it is worthwhile for Argento completionists because watching this, you can kind of get an idea about where Argento's coming from. He is not good at telling this kind of story. Aside from other problems of just like the performances being all over the place, I don't think Asia Argento has any idea what she's doing in the movie. I think it's, and I don't necessarily think that's her fault. I just don't think the script has any idea what it's doing with her character. So the Phantom is played by Julian Sands, and he is raised by rats, and that somehow turns him into a psychopathic killer. But in the movie, I'm just like, when you're watching it, you have no idea why the Phantom of the Opera is being evil and killing people. He just decides to do it, and he does it, and that's kind of just the general, things happen in the movie because somebody decided they should happen, and then other than that, it's just like there's no rhyme or reason for any of it. And next thing you know, you got this steampunk guy driving a rat killing car with it's a lot. But if you watch this and then watch some other movies, you can kind of tell where it goes off the rail and that there's no mystery to it. Stuff just happens. It doesn't really happen for any reason, and you don't have to guess because you see what happens, and it's just really poorly edited. There's a scene where the Phantom is stalking this lady through these catacombs, and then you see him, and then you see her, and then you see him, and you see her, and he's walking so slow, and it's just like, lady, just fucking run away. Get away from him. But anyway, looks great. Again, Vinegar Syndrome, no matter what the movie is, they will take care in restoring it. Good special features. Just put it on more for the curiosity than expecting a really good movie. And I just have to say, there is some atrocious CGI effects, and again, the English language soundtrack just has some just dead spots in it. And the strangest thing is, one of those is Julian Sands. Like, I don't know what he was doing in this performance, but yeah. Anyway, so the last one I want to talk about here is Stendhal Syndrome. They put out this really good collection of this with the slipcase, the slipcover, a little bookie book. I'm a sucker for these hard slipcases. I'm always tempted to rebuy movies I already have if it's got a nice little slipcase that'll look good on my shelf. But it's my money. I can waste it if I want to. But the Stendhal Syndrome is a really interesting movie, and this was kind of his return to Italy after traveling to America to make a couple movies. Two Evil Eyes, which I think is his section in that is fantastic. It's a co-production he did with kind of an anthology of two 1-hour movies with George Romero, and George Romero's is good too. I mean, it's a good time. You should check it out. But then he did Trauma, and Trauma had some interesting stuff. Also, Blu-ray was put out by Vinegar Syndrome. But there was some things that hamstrung him. So he came back to Italy and produced the Stendhal Syndrome, and it's starring his daughter, Asia Argento. And She's a detective who is overcome anytime she observes powerful art. And then she's tracking down a serial killer, rapist, and runs afoul. And just this is probably the meanest, nastiest movie that Argento made. And it's also probably the best performance Asia Argento has given. She's really great in it. And again, watch it with the Italian soundtrack, because I don't know what these voice actors were doing for the American or for the English language dub, but they just, well, they weren't doing much. Let's just put it that way. It seems like everybody's kind of halfway asleep when they're delivering their lines. But the English language soundtrack, which is so much better, and then also the English dub, they dubbed Asia Argento's voice even though she was speaking English in the production. So I just don't understand what they did, and the voice they dubbed her with is just weird. Another thing too, this was one of the earliest movies where Dario Argento was kind of experimenting with some CGI effects, and while some of them are kind of cool, stepping into the paintings and stuff like that, there's a couple that just seem weird and out of place and might be kind of jarring. But other than that, Thomas Kretschmann plays the serial killer, gives a really creepy performance. And again, this is just a mean and nasty movie. So just be prepared if you're kind of used to, if you haven't seen it before and you're kind of used to that Dario Argento kind of, operatic violence is kind of, more intriguing than disturbing. And, they're really violent movies, but they never really feel real, if that makes sense. This movie feels real. It has got some of the nastiest stuff, but it has some powerful moments as well. So again, uneven. But I would highly recommend checking it out if you're into Argento, but also if you're kind of into, the kind of more rough type of movies. This might be something that you'd want to check out. So yeah, that's what I got going on. I look forward to seeing you next week. I'll come up with some more shit to yap about, and hopefully you'll find it entertaining. Anyway, see you later.